Welcome back, Truth Seeker. It is the Saturday before Easter, April 19th, 2025, the day I refer to as Ignatius of Loyola Day. And that's because it's the day in history that he became the first superior general of the Jesuits, as recognized by the Roman Catholic Church. And one of the big stories in the world today is that Vladimir Putin came out and said he's honoring an Easter ceasefire. What a Christian Orthodox type of thing to do. And recall, I've been showing you, since December 7th, 2021, in the lead up to the war between Ukraine and Russia, that the entire thing was very clearly a Jesuit ritual. And now here we are on one of the most important Jesuit days of the year. If you forgot what happened, on Pearl Harbor Day, Biden and Putin met to discuss the tensions between Russia and Ukraine. And what was interesting is it was exactly 201 days from May 20th, which is Cannonball Day, the day to remember Ignatius of Loyola being shot with a cannonball. And that was the first day of the first ever Jesuit Ignatian year, which began on the 500th anniversary of him being shot with a cannonball. And the 201 days later matters because in Gematria, the Jesuit order equals 201, as does Ignatius of Loyola, as does Jorge Mario Bergoglio. That's Pope Francis, the first Jesuit Pope Francis, when the Jesuits were credited in France, and the last French Pope was the 201st in the Church. And don't forget, the Jesuit order was preserved in the time of their suppression, which began 201 days after the start of the year. But again, the Jesuits were preserved in Russia by Catherine the Great, who preserved the order with 201 Jesuit priests. And then when the war began, it began in the Donbass region, which equals 201. And of course, recently Biden sent $95 billion to Ukraine and Israel on the 201st day of the war. And it's a reminder that State of Israel also equals 201. And that war began also in a Jesuit ritual, another 201 ritual after Netanyahu came back in the big 201 ritual. Anyway, all these 201s point to the Jesuits. Everything about this is pointing to the Jesuits. And now on one of the most important Jesuit dates in the calendar year, Putin comes out and does this. Just think about it. I mean, how can you deny it? And recall, when the war began, Zelensky, the former actor who did the show about becoming the president through a populist movement, that was the show Zelensky did, and then he became the president through a populist movement in Ukraine. Talk about predictive programming. But Zelensky, the former actor, if you guys haven't seen the clips of Zelensky and the things he used to do, look up the clip of him playing the piano naked with his balls. I'm not joking. It's a real thing out there. A total goofball this guy is. But anyway, he was 44 years old when the war began, and it's a huge military number. As you can see in Gematria, Easter Sunday, ceasefire, military, they all equal 44. And by the way, don't forget the war officially began February 24th, 2022. Russia put their troops into Ukraine on February 22nd, 2022, and Biden addressed our nation at 2:22 Eastern Time on February 22nd. Superior General, the title of the leader of the Jesuits equals 222, just like the motto, order out of chaos. But as for the day the war officially began, February 24th, that's the day in history that the Jesuit Christopher Clavius implemented the Gregorian calendar. Yeah, so here we are for the Easter Sunday ceasefire. And notice it went into effect at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Washington, D.C. Again, Washington, D.C. is the Jesuit stronghold. It's pretty much where they do their world operations from at this moment in history. Not to mention Jesus equals 11. Remember, Society of Jesus equals 56, and the Pope was pleading with Putin on the 56th day of the year back in 2022 to stop. So the script went. But yeah, just a reminder of who runs the show, an Easter Sunday ceasefire. And don't forget, Putin, the war in Israel began on his birthday, and there's a whole lot more to that too. I'm not even going to get into all that right now, but yeah, more news by the numbers, more proof of who's pulling the puppet strings, who controls the theater of war, the political theater. Don't forget, in Gematria, the Jesuit order also equates with New World Order. Don't forget that one either. All right, we'll leave it there for now, Truth Seeker. Thank you to everyone who hits the like and the share. Have a good weekend, and until next time.